This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Today's show focuses on Tesla $1,000 a share, no problema. So we cover this topic as well as trading strategies versus investing strategies that are appropriate for this environment. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our show, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. We also appreciate any tips you might have. We answer questions typically after about 18 minutes of the show and try to go through our material prior to that. So I wanted to also review the fact that we do have private shows. Our next private show will be done on Thursday, heading into the Friday session for those who are on our Patreons, and the support is at $20 a month. We'll be happy to include you in that show if you choose to. So one of the issues right now with trading anything, including Tesla, is obviously there's something called volatility, and I want to congratulate you. Tesla got to 960 today on the high approximately, and that's a pretty awesome number. And so for those of you who are in, we want to congratulate you, and that's awesome. The other thing so we kind of have two segments. One is review what happened today and some trading tips that you should be aware of. And then the second thing we were getting into is sort of trading and fundamentals and what we're heading into. So the first part of our show today sort of focuses on the fact that there's one of the difficult parts about trading is the fact that it can take discipline to win. So if you own the stock long term, you're fine. But if you're trying to make 200 or 300% on options, it can require a little bit different process in terms of what you're looking at. So a great example is the fact that we reviewed with you a few fundamentals of trading. Number one, stocks tend to have a process that they go through the day. So there are some stocks that are up in the morning strong, low in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day, they're up strong again. And there are some stocks that do the opposite of that, very low in the morning, high in the middle day, like a sine curve, and at the end of the day, they're kind of low. In the case of Tesla, we have this phenomenon going where there are a lot of people looking for shares early in the morning, so it's becoming sort of the fashion to try to pick up shares in the afternoon towards the close and look forward to selling them at the open, because there are a lot of people looking for shares that cannot find them. So as a result, you see this dramatic push in price that's going on. So given that overnight has tended to yield 100 points of movement for the last couple of days, the next day, which is Wednesday, tomorrow, should be an interesting exercise in what's going to happen next. So it's clear that there's a short squeeze afoot, so that's affecting how prices are being pushed. There's also a phenomenon of a lot of managers needing to protect their careers, because there are certain stocks, once they start moving, those managers may jeopardize their future with their clients if they didn't find a way to logically enter a stock. So basically, you can have career protection as a reason for people to enter at high prices for certain stocks. And another term we've heard it called is window dressing, where the managers who are managing the money are asked by the large investors that gave them that money, were you in Tesla? And the answer they want to hear is yes, as it was making all that money. And so it can be another variable that can have a positive impact on the stock price of a company, in this case, Tesla. So what I wanted to dive into is the fact that if you watch Tesla's stock price this morning, kind of opened up nicely, pulled up into the 940 zone, and then started dropping back into the 880-ish zone, looking like it was a crash situation. And so one of the challenges that ends up if you you know, one of the challenges you can run into is it's very easy to sort of let emotions get the best of you and not stick with the fundamentals, perhaps, of kind of what's going on with trading for that entity. So the you know, fascinating thing for us is, or me, is that when you're in a trading zone, you spend a little more time trying to understand what's happening, because picking up 20% in a day or two is a whole year's worth of return on a stock in a few hours. So one might be inclined to do a little bit more, pay attention than you might otherwise do. So kind of where are we right now? Where are we going is another question that comes up. And that is that we haven't heard about capitulation yet, which is where the hedge funds just give up and stop shorting the stock. There seems still to be those who are inclined to maintain a negative perspective on Tesla, and that, you know, when the crash comes, it's going to be huge, etc. As we've stated, we expect somewhat of a pullback, because as the hedge fund managers are forced out and the large institutions enter, you know, you end up with this fascinating circumstance where price can really change dramatically in a very short period of time. So sort of being aware of what's going on, you know, isn't a bad thing to do, because there's definitely a lot of money at stake. So right now, clearly $1,000 a share is an important strategic moment. We predicted the arrival there on February 10, and you know, maybe it happens a few days earlier, but I wanted to repeat the fact that, you know, we kind of predicted that price point, and it's kind of worked out to that. But I think the most of the driver of that is the 3-day rule, is what I would argue is a driver for that. So number one, understand the daily movement of your stock. It could be Tesla, but it could be Microsoft, any other company. If you're going to own the stock and own the shares and you occasionally have to trade it, it's not a bad idea to understand times a day and the trends. And the biggest trend is that large institutions like to purchase in the first hour and a half and the last hour and a half of the day. So that's typically where you get the peak of pricing, because the trading volume of activity can affect price. It can be up or down, but in general, the larger volume of sales has the most impact. The second thing to be aware of is, as you've been able to watch and understand your stock over time, I think you generate a lot more comfort with the process of that company / that stock, by you know, by being sort of mindful of the trading patterns of those companies. So you know, the fascinating part of all this is that you know, Tesla benefits from indices. So there was just a comment about the Russell index and the fact that as Tesla stock price rises, and it's a part of a number of indices, not the S&P yet, it still gets a push on its price from a lot of outside forces that are required to buy more shares of Tesla. So literally, this is the battle that we talked about that's happening between large institutions as well as the hedge funds, in terms of, you know, could be a bloodbath, which has turned out to be for the hedge funds, and they're still hoping for a miracle that saves the day. But at least in the short term, it's hard to see that happening. Anyway, I wanted to sort of preview you guys, because it seems like what seems to be happening is most of the action on the way up, and I guess on the way down, is happening in the first and last hour of the day. So it's probably prudent for you to anticipatorily set yourself up trading-wise for those times, because it'll allow you to optimize what you're trying to accomplish. And clearly, the other issue with this is it can move very fast or very slow. What I mean by that is that if you're used to Tesla being at a $500 price point, you're used to a 10 or 12 or 15 point swing for the day. But once we're at 1,000, you know, I have to double the price of the stock, and the swings that it might experience over a day can be a lot larger. Now, the nice 150-point rise today obviously was unusual, but not unexpected because of all the pressure points that we've discussed in the past that are in motion. So the next thing I wanted to review is sort of what's happening at Barrons. They've come out and indicated that what's going on is insane, and they do not understand why this is happening. So we were very surprised by this because Barrons / the Wall Street Journal sits in the heart of everything in Manhattan. And so all they have to do is travel around town and visit some of the money managers and hedge funds that are there to determine in general what's occurring. So they're labeling it insanity. And I don't hear them mentioning the 3-day rule yet. So we're actually looking forward to, what's happening here. And the reality is that I think you'll see this over time, but there's this weird thing that happens in the trading space. And the moment at which the stock price usually jumps off the building is when people stop being scared about it rising and saying, so there are these phases where people are like, well, it can't go up anymore. Then they'll be like, wow, did you see what it did? And then they'll be, I can't believe it's doing this. I guess we should all start getting into it. And when everybody decides, hey, this is a winner, that's when it typically drops, because basically you've run out of people to go buy more of it. And so in terms of those 4 quadrants, if you will, it's our feeling that Tesla's in the mode where basically we're in the this is ridiculous, it's not happening mode. And then the next mode we'll get into, I think it's over the next 2 or 3 days, it's wow, the fundamentals that have been presented that validate the stock price that we have are pretty compelling. Let's all dive in. And so you kind of run out of people that are on the skeptical fence, and they get in at the point where there's no more upside, and therefore fewer buyers means you have the downside that shows up. So we'll see if historical patterns play out here. Entirely possible. We shall see if that is the outcome. The next thing that we wanted to kind of dive into is there's been some great research done by ARC Capital to validate the price point Tesla's going to. We all know that in April there's a battery day coming. That's good. We also wanted to note that while we like the fact that battery day is coming, don't be surprised if what we learn is pretty much what we knew before, which is not a whole lot, because Tesla's pretty secretive when it comes to sort of key elements of what it does. So I kind of bring this up because the real secret sauce for Tesla for us is their software development, and Elon's an expert on that in terms of principles of Silicon Valley. So we'll see what happens with this, but notice the secretive elements. We don't know how many Model Ys were ordered. We know how many of the Cybertruck were ordered, because it kind of validated the choice to make that vehicle. We don't know how many in total has been built or being built for the semi-truck. Important industry, a lot of big competitors potentially trying to jam Tesla. So it's interesting to notice where Tesla / Elon chooses to open the kimono and let us see what's happening versus the opposite. The one other thing I wanted to review today is that we did kind of get some good news. One of our Chinese viewers was pointing out that while Wuhan is still seeing a rising number of infections, perhaps infections left over to be announced previously, they're actually seeing kind of a decline in incidence in non-Wuhan area. So that's actually a good thing to hear about, that we have some potential for a better circumstance in that regard, and clearly that would help Tesla in its operating in China situation. So in general, this obviously is turning out not to be a huge show for us, but we just wanted to review the fact that we had a nice 150-point run for the stock today. We're glad you made some money and look forward to making some more. We also, feel like at this point the institutions really need to take positions, and it's hurting the ability of the shorts to really make it happen in the direction they want, which is down. So we will obviously keep you posted on this. We'll have our show tomorrow morning that includes obviously reviewing what we're heading to for the trading day, and we'll update you at that point. You know, Imho pointed out, is there no probable cause that would cause the stock to pull back? You know, the answer to that is that when institutions operate, they operate on 2 to 3 year time frames. When individuals operate or hedge funds, they're working on 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, a year, a lot. And so those people on the long horizon right now are really taking positions on with the idea towards very, very high prices later. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not the market chooses to adopt their philosophy that's showing through in the price of the stock, or makes a decision to say, hey, you guys are nuts, it should be lower at this point. Obviously, in which case stock price could be down. So we look forward to next phase and new details to share. And we'll be back tomorrow. We have a number of shows that we're at about 600 shows, and we have a number of shows we did that we actually reposted, but we have our first show tomorrow from our older set that's being redone. And the name of the show is 5 Secrets of the Gigafactory That Are Worth Noting. And so we'll be airing that tomorrow morning, and likely in this forum. At any rate, no, it's still on. At any rate, I want to thank you all for taking time out to join us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. I wanted to encourage you guys to support by liking and subscribing. For those of you who would like the extra shows that are private, you can get them if you're on Patreon and you're at least at the $20 level. Because the charges for Patreon for February have already happened, you actually have to do admin at Teslafaninsight.com in order to do PayPal for your payment, and then you get the extra shows. I think the most important show of the week is coming up on Thursday, because we kind of prep for what happens on the Friday trading day. So I think that that last show of the week will be an important one, and we look forward to reviewing all the fundamentals of good trading for the week and assist in the process of understanding how to make money in this environment with Tesla. At any rate, don't see any questions popping up right now. Just wanted to say thank you for joining us once again. Don't forget, at least 25 leg lifts per leg per day with a 5-pound weight. Also consider a 5-2 diet. Also, you may want to think about fried foods no more than once a week. And also, we wanted to encourage you to consider playing an instrument or going dancing or something in that creative space to keep the mental juices flowing, if you will. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lihitrot, Hebrew, Choda, Fez, Farsi, do widzenia, Polish, Hejdo, Swedish, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, and Ni hao ma, hello, in Chinese. Best of luck to our Chinese friends in this tough time relative to the viruses. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to our 1,000 level arriving shortly. Have a great day. Bye for now, and thank you once again for joining us.